all you Chandlers out there. I'm Dr. Tamara Lee Terry of Tamara Lee Lifestyle Design Collection. And guess what? Today I'm going to be taking you through a journey on how to make the perfect designer candle. And I'm so excited because my vessels came in. These are the vessels that I use for my signature Tamara candle, which fragrance is warm vanilla sugar. And I'm going to give you the simple steps that it takes to make the most perfect candles. I'm not going to let you in on all my little secrets, of course, but I am going to take you through our journey as Chandlers to show you what our process is and how we do candle making. So let's get started. Okay, so there's definitely some things that you're going to need to have in order to get started. So I'm just going to flip the camera around and give you a little preview of the things that you will need. So I'm flipping. This is my Presto pot. It looks kind of like a slow cooker or deep fryer. This is what I use to melt my wax in. You don't have to have one of these. You can use a double boiler, which will serve as a big pot filled a quarter of water, and then another pot which will serve for you to melt your wax, and that's what you'll use instead of one of these. You will need a scale. This is mine. You will need vessels of your choice. These are the ones that I use when I'm making my Tamara candle. These are ones that I use when I'm making my 8-ounce Zeal. And these are 6 ounce for Pink Elegance. You're gonna need some wicks. The ones that I'm gonna use for the Tamara candle are just cotton wicks, and they've already been pre-waxed. These vessels have already been cleaned. You want to make sure that you clean them on the inside with an alcohol swab just to make sure there's no residue in there. And you always want to have gloves. I have gloves. And you're going to want to have a pour pot. This is my little pour pot. I also use one of these measuring type cups. You're going to need the wax of your choice. I will be using soy wax 464. You will also need to use either fragrance oil or essential oils. I prefer to use essential oils. They're a little bit more stronger, so when you're using it to fragrance the wax, you want to start off maybe using a little bit less. So maybe start off using a ½ ounce as opposed to an ounce. Most chandlers use an ounce of fragrance to add to a pound of wax. So that is the purpose of having the scale. And who says that what you learned in school you'll never use, right? Okay, we learned measurements, and definite science and measurements come into play if you're going to be a candle maker, or as we call it, a chandler. So we're going to begin by measuring our wax. So what I do is I'm turning on my scale. My scale usually will come up, and then I'm going to, as you can see, it's measuring the cups, so I'm going to zero it out. Okay, and that's going to make way for me to add my wax. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off, just for purposes of showing you guys what we're doing. I'm going to add 1 pound of wax to this cup. So you remember a pound is 16 ounces, right? We learned that in school. Okay, so that's where we start. Okay, so the wax is all measured out. We have 16 ounces, which comes to 1 pound of wax, all measured out. Next, we're going to put it in my Presto pot, and we're going to melt it. Now, each wax has a different melting point. I'm using soy wax, and this particular brand that I'm using calls for the wax to melt and be at about a temperature of 155 if you're going to add fragrance to it and also dye to it. I'm not adding any dye. I don't like adding dye other than just when I'm doing marbling. But all my other candles are the natural color of the wax. So we're going to add our fragrance around 155. And then after we let it cool down to between 130 and 150, we're going to attempt to pour it. I'm going to put this in the melting pot, and while it's melting, then we're going to go ahead and we're going to stick our wicks in our vessels. So that'll give us something to do while the wax is melting. As I stated earlier, these have already been cleaned with an alcohol wipe, so there's no residue in my containers. Just want to make sure that they're clean because the wicks stick better. You just get a better product when you do it that way. So now we're going to melt the wax. We use these little babies to stabilize the wick so that it's centered once it's hardening, once the wax goes in. So these are little wick stabilizers, and I'm going to show you how. There you go. So this is going to help stabilize it so that wick's not going to move. Once we pour the wax in there, it can harden right in the center. The other thing you're going to need is a thermometer. You can use a candy thermometer, or you can use one like this. I prefer this one. It's digital, and you're just going to use to monitor the temperature of the wax. Therefore, you know what temperature you'll need to add the fragrance and what temperature you can pour. Again, this particular soy wax that I'm using, the fragrance is going to be added at 155 degrees, and we're going to pour between 130 and 150 degrees. It's very important to stir your wax and to make sure that you're monitoring the temperature of your wax, because you never want the wax to burn. That would not be a good thing. You would not get a good result. Okay, so the temperature looks like it's going to be right sticking around here, which is going to be great for us to go ahead and add the fragrance now. And I'm going to stir it constantly for about 2 minutes. And then I'm going to wait for it to cool down to about 130 to 135, and then we're going to pour it into our vessels. And now we just wait for it to harden, and then once it's done, almost hardened, I'm going to top it with little jewels. And some of them I decided I was going to double wick them. I just wanted them to have a different look. Okay, I'm going to give you a few candle tips. Sometimes, depending on maybe what the temperature was that you set the container on, sometimes you will not get that even top. It seems like, like you want to have your candles tops come out perfectly smooth, but it doesn't always work out like that. But there is a simple solution to that. You can just take a heat gun and put the heat gun on low temperature, and then you're just going to easily apply the heat gun to the top layer of that wax to just melt the top layer, and then when it hardens again, it will harden smoothly. So that's one little tip. The other little tip that I have for you is not to move your jars. Once you have poured, let it sit there. Do not move it to a different location. The wax is very sensitive, so you want to just let it harden where it's at. So then you just move it once it solidifies. But other than that, you let it stay put. And then you want to probably make sure that your containers are a little warm. You don't want them to be really, really cold when you pour, because that sometimes too can disrupt the formation of the smooth wax blend. So you just want to make sure sometimes that your containers are warm. It helps, like what I've learned is, because what I usually like to pour is on my kitchen countertop, which is granite. So granite is cold. So sometimes you just might want to elevate that and put it on like a little stand or something like that that's not directly on the cold surface, so that the container can stay warm, and when the hot wax is poured into the container, it binds a little bit smoothly. So that's just another little tip. And then those things that we learn in school, and it's sometimes you think you're never going to use those kind of things, but chemistry comes into play here. There is a science behind fragrancing a candle, and sometimes I think you want that candle to just be so fragrant. I know the mistake that I was making when I first was getting started was I was putting a whole lot of fragrance in there when I really didn't have to. And one thing that I noticed is if you put too much fragrance in there, you're going to get that oily look on the top of the candle, and you don't want that. You want that chalky blend. You want that candle to look nice and chalky on top. So the rule of thumb is for every pound of wax, you're only going to use 1 ounce of fragrance oil. And again, like I said, if you are using essential oils, you want to start off with less than that, because If you put too much oil, it's not going to bind with that wax. So you're not going to get that chalky look that you want. You're going to get an oily look on top, and you don't want that. So always just trust that the fragrance that you're using is going to be fragrant enough to make that candle smell great. So again, for every pound of wax, you're going to use 1 ounce of fragrance. Unless you're using essential oil, you're going to start off with a little bit less, because essential oils tend to have more fragrance than the fragrance oil do. It's more concentrated, so to say. So I hope this helps. As you can see, it's starting to solidify, and I'm getting my chalky white smooth top. So I'm happy about that. Things are looking wonderful, and I can't wait to put the finishing touches on these. What I usually do is I adorn my dish with a personalized ribbon, my personalized tag, and I give it a little... I like to put the finishing touches on, so I will add my signature tag, my signature ribbon, as well as a tassel. And that completes my look and just makes it look really, really... Here she is, the Tamara candle in all her glory. Get yours today. Now you can follow Tamara Lee Lifestyle Design Collection on all of my social medias, which is TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram, and LinkedIn. And I do post my schedule as to when I'm going to be in Market by Macy's, so you can come and meet the designer and experience my collection. And again, it's on all my social medias, which I post, and I'd appreciate it if you would share it with your family. So there you have it. Easier than you thought, huh? Well, maybe not so much. We do get some snags along the way, but I wanted to give you the basis of what it's like in the day of a Chandler and what it's like for me as I make my designer collection. I'm getting a new collection ready, a new batch of candles ready to go with me into Market by Macy's, which I am in both McDonough and in Snellville, Georgia. So soon to advance into the Atlanta area, as well as New York and Chicago, as more stores are opening up. So I would appreciate your support. Please subscribe to this channel. Please like the broadcast, and please share it with your family and your friends. And I so greatly appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much, and tune in next time to Tamara Lee Lifestyle Design TV. See you later. Bye.